Okay, gang, we're going to go back to the 50s again, 53, 54 with Mr. Bill Pearl. And we're going to have three full routines from Bill's. And he does some unique things, so it's definitely worth a watch. There he is, and we're going to start out with the shoulder routine. And pretty decent shoulders back here at 53. So you can't really read the text box too well. It's a little small, but by Leo Stern, just saying how good of shoulders he had at the time and how you could maybe get a pair like them by following his routine. So our coach never told us weights would slow you down, make you muscle bound. Explained simply and sincerely, no one became slow and awkward if he trained properly. Always encouraging to do push ups and chin ups and stuff like that, and work out with weights whenever we could in between our high school athletic activities. So then he talks about how he started to work out with barbells, and with inside of a few months, my school buddies were soon noticing that I was gaining weight, and they were asking me what I did to gain weight and why my arms were growing. In a few more months, my ability in high school sports was greater, and I was the fellow who was running the fastest and hitting the hardest. Uh, with all the wonderful training methods and principles we have today, and it's just pretty much anybody can develop shoulders. And then he talks about some of the greats, famous greats of the weight world. John Davis, Clancy Ross, Jack Dellinger, Leo Robert have devoted years of their lives to training and setting a good example for youngsters to follow. George Eiferman is another bodybuilding great who has traveled hundreds of miles and to hundreds of schools throughout the states, giving exhibitions and talks on the merits of weight training. So then we're going to get into the heart of the actual routine. Few bodybuilders fail to do some kind of deltoid work because nearly every overhead moment affects the muscle. It's now simply a matter of grouping these shoulder exercise together, cutting out those that do not isolate the exercise effects directly. Here are the ones that I give, and which will add shapely inches in no time flat. The press behind the neck, because of course it's an old school favorite. There's it. He's doing real lightweight there. Now, if a lot of people, this is a shoulder issue, especially old folks like me. Great exercise if you can do it, doesn't bother your shoulders, um, but a lot of people it does. And he's talking about he describes it here where it can be performed either standing or seated, shoulder width grip, about 5 inches or wider than the shoulders, and then just bring it to the back of the head and up. Upright rowing is another old school one. A lot of guys don't do these days. For building up the front part of the delts, one of the finest movements. Hold the barbell with a close grip, as shown here. Okay, so that's a big part of it. And he did these pretty strict and bringing straight up to under the chin, without a lot of body sway or anything like that. Um, Exercise three would be the seated dumbbell press. Favorite exercise of Clancy Ross. He goes on to give accolades to Clancy on how big his shoulders were. Um, and that's a pretty obvious one. Weight should be pressed to arm's length overhead and touched together, which, I'm not sure how important the touching together is, but I guess Bill feels it is. There it is. And you can see he's not using ridiculous weights there. Um, But again, he does suggest touching them together. Then he goes into the chin behind neck, which to me seems more like of a lat exercise, but he's talking about doing it for building like the breadth of the shoulders. Pull yourself straight up, and then let yourself down slowly. So then we go into the lying deltoid laterals. Now he does a couple different like rear delt things. Now, I don't think he's doing all of these. He suggests at some point, you pick depending on what level you're at, 2 to 4 of these exercises, not all 7 or 8. So there they are. There's the lying and kind of self-explanatory. And just you don't want to hyperextend your shoulders really from this position. Just bring them up till your arms are kind of straight out. And then we go to deltoid raises against wall, and he just suggests that you do it that way, so you're keeping it stricter. Again, not trying to get any body sway or anything like that. And again, he does pretty almost most all this stuff with straight arms. There he is. So there's the top position. So it's a little bit elevated beyond right where your shoulder level is. Um, and again, you see he's leaning up against the post there. And then he moves into your bent over deltoid raises, which he admits is pretty much almost the same as number five, but instead of lying on a bench, you bend forward at the waist, and you can use heavier weights. Uh, you know, basically suggesting you could cheat a little bit on these. But then, of course, at the bottom, he says don't cheat too much. And for pretty much all this stuff, he's saying do like 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10 to 12, or something along those lines. So there obviously is the bent over deltoid raises. And he does say, and it is true, a lot of guys, it's one of the things they neglect a lot is the rear delts. And then he goes into your standing deltoid raises called old standby movement. And again, with straight arms, don't use too much back bend. Keep your arms straight and locked at the elbows. 3 to 5 sets of 10. So he's doing a little bit more volume there, but you can see he's using real light weights there. He's not trying to do any crazy weight. Um, maybe doing that to suggest that youngsters and new guys don't try to go crazy with it. There's no need for you to keep to a couple. We're going to move into leg exercises now. Leg exercises, be content with small gains. Use this Mr. Universe leg specialization program and add inches to your thighs. And there's the spread, how I specialized to add inches of muscle to my thighs. And there's pretty good pictures. I mean, his thighs were not really ripped, but rip wasn't even too much of an issue back in those days. And he talks about how in every gym, there's you see people working out and some really good physiques, but there's somebody usually has some kind of flaw, and more often than not, the flaw is going to be found in the legs because a lot of guys seem to love to train the upper body, but they either neglect or just don't put as much work into the legs. So you see those guys, with the massive upper bodies and then skinny legs, which is not a good look. And it's also not good for your strength by any means. I mean, especially if you're going to be a power lifter, obviously you got to train, legs. Um, So we cannot see our internal organs, but we would never dream of neglecting them so that they fail to function efficiently or keep them in best possible condition. So he goes on to say that, of course, we have to go after thigh training. Even if you have naturally big legs, he's saying you still got to work them out. That's no excuse. Um, and he keeps talking about how a lot of guys seem to want to specialize, uh, building up their upper bodies. They'll find that the leg work will also add inches to the upper bodies, and this goes back to the old idea about building up the rib cage, as with the heavy breathing, which of course he's going to talk about doing squats and pullovers. And or he does talk about doing, and I've seen this elsewhere. He talks about doing dumbbell, like they call them laterals, but flies basically, and in a breathing style, just like the same way you would do with the breathing pullovers. So it goes on. If you're thinking of undertaking, it's always good to remember that the legs are just like anything else. So you gotta, gotta put your work in for them. So the first exercise is leg press, and this is the old school leg press. We actually had one of those at the gym at Twin City Barbell, where I used to be part of the team there, and that was actually pretty cool. And he's saying how you can, really stack up the weight ultimately, and he's talking about his friend getting up to 1,000 pounds for 10 reps, and there it is. It's the old school straight up and down leg press. You don't see those in too many gyms today, if any. Um, you can buy one for your home gym. I mean, they're still around, obviously. And then exercise two is bench squats. Excellent way to perform leg work if you have knee trouble. Um, Almost get the impression that Bill did, maybe at least at this time, because he seemed to be more focused on the machines and doing like partial squats than doing full barbell squats. Could be wrong, and that may change at a different time. I actually was doing bench squats with really heavy weight, and I was never a great squatter. That was kind of right before my needing to get my hip replaced days. I don't know. Maybe there was a connection there. Anyway, we're moving on to front squats. I hate my most hated exercise. I got to tell you, I just don't can't get the feel of holding it, on my clavicles like that. It just doesn't feel right. And obviously, Bill's not doing massive weight here. You can see he's got his heels elevated. Um, Looks like he's got about 95 or 100 pounds or so there. But he is going, he's breaking parallel there, so I may have to take back what I just said. Exercise four, hack squats on the machine. That's the old school machine, but the old school machine hack squats aren't that much different. You probably have to say the newer ones are probably better in some regards, but hack squat machine is a hack squat machine. And he talks about that he's been doing them for a couple of years, and he really likes them for building mass, like right around the knees, and basically the quads. Okay, and he's actually saying that they're good for the knees. And then we talk about regular half squats as opposed to bench squats, which is bench squat is a little deeper than half squat. But and we'll show a movement with somebody else doing it, but you really are only going like halfway down. Paul Anderson did like doing those with just ridiculous weight. So there it is. I can see he's not going down real deep. Still, even if obviously he's using lightweight there, but I would prefer to do any kind of squat motion like that in a cage. So he's talking about. He described it here. The next one is going to be leg extensions that he's talking about, and here he does fairly high reps. So he does 3 to 5 sets of 15 to 20. Now, obviously, this isn't Bill, and this is a little bit newer style leg extension. But again, leg extensions are leg extensions. Um, so he just believes, it's more of a shaping exercise, and therefore you would do a little bit more reps. And then he goes into your standing leg curls, which I wouldn't be surprised if they even at that time were doing leg curls with the old iron boots, which I've done videos on those. I actually have several pairs of them too. But in this case, he was doing it on a machine, and you can do it on a regular uh, um, lying down machine, but it's much easier. Most gyms have the standing up ones where you can do one leg at a time. Yeah, my gym has one. And then, so that's about it for the legs. We're going to move into the last one, which is the chest specialization routine, which we may have saved the best for last here, just the way he describes things. And most of the pictures for the exercise description is going to be towards the end. Just kind of how this is laid out. Again, the secrets and favorite exercise that you can use to add many inches of muscle onto your chest. And it says Bill uses supersets. So he's been approached by many people asking him how he developed his chest, what exercises they think are the best. So he's saying that he's glad that he had an opportunity to pretty much answer all those questions in this muscle builder in the hopes it will aid you in your quest for greater physical development. Um, and this is a later picture of him where I'm pretty sure he's doing a little D-ball or something here. He did admit in his career that he did experiment with it a little bit. I don't think he was a big juice head or anything. but pretty sure he did at least a little bit. Um, So he talks about arms and legs. Your need to exercise arm and legs immediate, but the pecs we require a great deal of training time to show any improvement. And he goes on to say that kind of a tough area for him to develop. And of course, talks about the basic structure, the rib box being prerequisite to having that really big chest. Again, this is a bigger obviously, and newer later on. I think this is from the 60s, where he's a little bit bulked up, obviously. And Bill had a great physique, man. Good dude, too. And he was just involved in powerlifting and bodybuilding and stuff for, his whole life. So he's talking about, what's kind of weird. He references singers needing to work out and have a big rib cage for their lungs, and so he moves on to the rib box exercises, and of course, breathing squats. It's the most effective, along with a rib stretching exercise. And again, he talks about either doing like the breathing style flies or dumbbell laterals, as he calls them, or pullovers. Again, this is obviously an older picture of him. And he competed for a long time. Another exercise I found outstanding job on the pecs is dips on rings, which is interesting based on we did a video a couple weeks ago on Jack like a gymnast and how those guys have incredible upper bodies. So it's interesting that Bill says he prefers them to any other style. And so they're a little harder, can't do as many reps, but they're definitely worth the effort. There he is in Mr. Universe against you know who. And this was, looks like 63. So he goes on to say what all the exercises are. Um, and he actually gives, like the way he lays them out. In the course of a routine. Now there he is with a nice ab shot. And, never had like a real chiseled 8 pack. He had more of that vacuum kind of look with the big ribs, and which was popular in the day. Um, so he goes on to say another thing that helped his training was the incline press with either dumbbells or barbells is the best I've found for upper pec work. Um, and then he goes on to talk about a bent arm lateral again, which just flies basically on a slant bench, which is similar to the regular incline, but just at a slightly different angle. So it hits a little bit different. Now he starts out with again like a superset again of breathing squats and pullovers, and he'll do several sets of those. And now instead, he didn't. The original breathing squat thing was to do 20. He was doing like sets of 10 here in this routine. And then maybe a little bit more reps on the pullovers. So, and says he uses a flushing system, whatever, Joe. Uh, but this is the bent arm laterals on the slant that he's talking about. And again, just a little bit of a different angle than doing them on the incline bench, and bringing them together, and looks like he has his he's trying to get his scaps, you know, together as much as possible. And he talks about this chest crossover exercise, which people have done with cables a lot, but not with dumbbells. So it might be a little awkward to do with dumbbells at first, but it's probably worth a shot actually. And then he talks about doing dips. Obviously, looks like he has at least a plate attached there. And it looks like he's leaning forward pretty good now. Uh, I think the more forward you lean, the more chest it hits, honestly. And then there's the picture of the dips between rings. Um, and he talks about obviously he uses the set system anywhere from 2 to 7 sets per exercise, I'm sure he means. So there's the chest crossovers again. Might be worth a shot, something different. And that is about it for all three routines. So thanks for watching. If you do like the video, appreciate it if you hit those likes. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed. If you haven't yet, I really appreciate it if you would. So thanks again, and I am out.